Hey everybody, welcome to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Dan Labbe, Kay Cabot, Ashley Bastock coming to you here on Tuesday, recording this ahead of the Browns joint practice against Carolina and then their preseason game on Friday. If you're wondering, like, hey Dan, didn't you say we wouldn't have a pod until Wednesday? Well, there was news. Of course there was news. Mary Kay, you reported probably about an hour ago as we're recording this, that Shedeur Sanders is expected to start on Friday. The Browns, of course, injuries piling up at the quarterback position. Kenny Pickett dealing with a hamstring. Dillon Gabriel dealing with a hamstring. They signed Tyler Huntley. They don't want to send Joe Flacco out there to the Wolves necessarily. So it's all added up to Friday night all of a sudden becoming a game that a lot of people are going to have eyeballs on because Shedeur Sanders going to start for the Browns.
Well, yes. And, when you look at it, really, they didn't want to start Joe Flacco in this first preseason game. They can't play Kenny Pickett in this first preseason game because of his hamstring injury. They can't play Dillon Gabriel because of his hamstring injury. And so that brought it down to Tyler Huntley and Shedeur Sanders. Well, Tyler Huntley just signed with the Cleveland Browns today. Shedeur Sanders has been here putting in the work since rookie minicamp. So I think it stands to reason that they would start Shedeur Sanders over Tyler Huntley. Now, I actually thought a case could be made to let Shedeur come in off the bench, to get those starters out of there and let him come in and work against the second team Panthers defense. But that's really not how it's going to be. I guess they're looking at this as an opportunity to throw him into the fire and see how he performs. And he's played a lot of football. He's started a lot of games in his day. And I think they're ready to see what he can do.
Ashley, what was your initial reaction when you saw Mary Kay's tweet?
Well, it was basically what you and I had started to talk about, Dan, before we hit record, which is that, I can't believe this is how it's playing out, but of course this is how it's playing out. It was kind of very similar to how I felt when they drafted Shedeur, right? You just kind of go in and everything you've seen up until that point makes you think, okay, there's probably not a huge chance of this happening in the case of them drafting him or even him starting this game. And we had been talking about it, right? Because he hasn't gotten those first team reps with the first team offense in practice yet. So I'm just not surprised in the narrative of everything we know about the Browns and how crazy this team can be to cover and how they're always moving the needle. The fact that the room is so banged up, and obviously I said the other day on the podcast, and it's common sense, why would you start or want to play Joe Flacco extensively in this game? There's truly no reason to, when he's the only one that hasn't been banged up this training camp. So surprised, but not surprised. This was always going to be destiny, I feel like, in this crazy quarterback match.
Yeah, I was saying I can't believe this is happening, but then you think about it and you're like, of course this is happening. It's happening much faster than anyone expected. But I think this speaks to, Mary Kay, in the NFL, you can make all these plans. You can say, we're going to do it this way. We're going to slow play it with this guy. We don't want him out on the field. But I've referenced this before. When this team drafted Cody Kessler, the plan wasn't to start Cody Kessler. They signed Robert Griffin III, and they had a plan in place to make sure Cody Kessler wasn't starting. And then guess what? By week 3, Cody Kessler was the Browns' starting quarterback. So this is not a league where you can consistently make plans and stick to them. And it just always feels like with this football team in particular, it just it always goes much, much faster than they expected. And now here they are having to start Shedeur Sanders in a preseason game that, when they drafted him, when training camp opened, all of that, there was no plan to start him in this game.
No, there really wasn't. I think they've done a really nice job of bringing him along very, very slowly. And I think that even though it's been way too slow for all of the many, many Shedeur Sanders fans out there, I think there was a method to the Browns' madness. They wanted to get him up to speed on all of the pre-snap stuff. They wanted to make sure that when he did go out there, that he would feel confident in what he was doing, that he could, ID the linebackers and all the things that you have to do, get the play called in the huddle, deal with the motions and the protections and all of that kind of stuff. And they've worked very hard with him on that. He's looked good. He's looked particularly good in the one area that is most important for a quarterback, and that is your accuracy. He's been amazing at that. And the truth of the matter is we just haven't seen him throw with Jerry Jeudy and throw to David Njoku and Cedric Tillman, or take a snap from Ethan Posich, or get blocked for by Jack Conklin or Joe Batoni or whatever. We just haven't seen him do that yet. We have seen him take 4 snaps against the Browns' first team defense, but I do think that they've done a nice job of just keeping the noise at bay and just helping him to keep his head down and go to work. And I mean, it only makes sense right now for them to do this. And I really think that's what it's going to be. I mean, your only other options would have been to throw Joe out there for a series or 2. But what if you do that and you get him hurt and he's supposed to be your week 1 starter? Or to throw Tyler Huntley out there and he's coming in like truly cold off of the couch. I don't know that would have made sense either. So you get him in there, you let him play a little bit, you see how it goes, and then you go from there.
Yeah, and I think, Ashley, we've talked about this on this pod, right? And I think Shedeur's approach has been really good throughout whenever we've talked to him. It's just patience. And it's, the thing everybody loves to say in the NFL, control what you can control. And I think he's done a good job of that. And as people have complained, well, we want to see more of Shedeur and he should be getting first team reps and all of this. We've kind of kept saying he's doing what he needs to do. He's just taking advantage of the opportunities that are there. And if you're patient, again, in this league, that opportunity is going to find you because guys get hurt, injuries happen, and these grand plans teams make get turned on their head. And so now here's Shedeur facing this golden opportunity on Friday night to where he can basically say, just by showing up and doing his job, it's time. You guys need to start giving me more. This is his opportunity, and that's what this league is all about.
Yeah, and I'm curious, even before that game on Friday, I would think that with this joint practice on Wednesday, now, as you're going to hear at some point here when we talk to Mike Kaye from down in Carolina, the weather is going to be an interesting factor in how this joint practice is going to go. But now the question is Wednesday, when they're supposed to have this joint practice with the Panthers, how many reps with the ones on offense is he going to get? And I think that's also going to be significant because I would assume that that's going to have to be part of the practice plan. But the weather being the interesting factor here in all of this, I think. But it's going to be the first time really that he would have a chance to throw to those first team guys. And I'm really curious just to see how this week is going to go for him because, I do think little by little, as he's been given more, you've seen him step it up. It's at least left me, as an observer, curious to be okay, I want to see more potentially from him. And this is not how I thought we would get that. But it just kind of seems to be the way the chips are falling right now.
So that's the really interesting part of this, I think, that joint practice. Because if we're being honest, that we've always talked about this with this coaching staff, with this front office. They seem to value these joint practices and the things that are happening on the practice field in the summer more than they do preseason games. So that's what makes this really interesting. And depending on when you're hearing this, maybe you're listening to this after they practiced already. I think they practiced at 9:30 in the morning. So maybe you know the answer to this already if you're listening, if you've waited a little while to listen to this. But Mary Kay, if he's going to start, he's got to get at least a few first team reps now. Again, the situation forces the Browns' hands a little bit, and it does it in a situation where Shedeur is going to be put into some of the highest leverage first team reps that they've had all summer in these joint practices. It's not Philly, but it's still a joint practice against another team's defense. And all of a sudden, it very well could be Shedeur Sanders getting those super, super valuable first team reps.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have to get some of those reps tomorrow. I don't think you can throw him out into the football game when he's never thrown a pass to Jerry Jeudy or taken a snap from Ethan Posich. I just don't think you can do it. So he's going to have to get some of those reps. He's going to go right up over Dylan and Kenny, and he has to. I mean, we saw that in practice the other day that it was really just Joe and Shedeur getting those first team reps when they did the situational football at the end of the game. And again, Shedeur did not get work with the first team offense or against the first team defense in those periods, but he's going to have to tomorrow. And plus there will be, probably more of them because they'll be on, two fields with the Browns defense going against the Panthers offense and then the Browns offense going against the Panthers defense. So there should be more opportunities for him, and it's just a chance for him to step up and show what he can do. And I think he's a gamer. He is a gamer. When it comes to, retreating or drifting a little bit, he's done that less in the 11-on-11 reps than he sometimes was doing in the 7-on-7 sessions. So, he's played high-level football at Colorado, and I think he kind of turns it on a little bit when the lights come on. Now, he took too many sacks there, and he's not going to be able to do that here because if he does that at this level, he stands a chance of getting hurt, and you just don't want to take that risk. You just don't want to do that with a young quarterback like this, especially right now. But this is a chance for him to scan the field, find the open man, and hit his guy. And that's something that he does very, very well. If they keep it simple enough for him, I think he'll be successful.
Yeah, it's not even just obviously going against getting those first team reps is important for the defense you face, and just seeing if some of those bad habits in Colorado followed him to the NFL, if he has cleaned up some of those things. But the other part of it too is, he's going to get that first team O-line now. He's going to get Jerry Jeudy. He's going to get Cedric Tillman. He's going to get Deontay Johnson, who's actually having a really nice camp here. So he's not going to be throwing to, and nothing against this guy. He's had a good camp too, but he's not going to be throwing to Luke Floria and Cade McDonald. And so, maybe that deep ball he missed on, when were we out there last Monday? Maybe that deep ball he missed on Monday, maybe Jerry Jeudy catches up to that. So that's kind of the flip side of it too. It's going to be more difficult for him, Ashley, but it's also, there's going to be guys out there that are going to maybe help make him look even better.
Yeah, and we talk about it all the time, and I really think it's something that we've seen over the last couple of weeks now. It just looks different when it's Jerry Jeudy, and even Mary Kay said this too, even when it's Deontay Johnson. Like, those guys just look different when they run, and they are making plays that, those other guys who might be good practice squad players or whatever, that have performed just can't make, right? Like, they are Pro Bowl caliber receivers. And I do think that part of it, in terms of how is it going to help him, it's an interesting prospect. It's also like why I've been curious to see it and waiting to see it, because I do think there's an element of that too. Like, it's both sides, right? There's a chance that some of those bad habits could potentially rear their ugly head, but there's also a chance that, hey, maybe it looks better than he has looked, just because he has these top of the depth chart guys to throw the ball to now.
Okay, so let's spin this forward as best we can. We've talked about the opportunity here. We've talked about the finally getting those first team reps. It might not be the Browns' choice, but he's getting them, and he's going to get to start this football game. So, Mary Kay, this opens up an interesting scenario. So they practice on Monday in Berea, and then they go to Philadelphia for those joint practices. That's a difficult time to kind of throw Shedeur back into the fire. But is it possible that in these 2 days, so a practice Wednesday and a game Friday, is it possible that he could do enough in those two settings to convince the Browns to start giving him those first team reps? Or is it just going to be a situation where they look at it and say, hey, we still aren't ready to throw you into the fire against the Eagles yet, so we're going to go back to the status quo?
Well, I think it's going to come down to, what are Kenny and Dylan going to be able to do even then? Kenny Pickett told us the other day that even when he does come back into action, he's going to have to manage the hamstring. That doesn't say playing in a preseason game to me next week either. It just doesn't. And then Dylan, I don't know how serious his hamstring is. It didn't seem as serious as Kenny's. It seemed to be more tightness. Will he be ready to go in that game? I don't know. If he is ready to go and they really feel confident about that, then maybe he gets the start in that game, and they still dial back Joe Flacco and maybe throw him out there in the third preseason game. So I just don't really think that that they know exactly how it's going to shake out yet. But I just get the vibe that Kenny's not going to be ready to start against his former Eagles team.
Oh, so I guess real quickly, just to follow up, I guess a better way to ask that is I think we've all sort of looked at this as, even though it is a 4-man competition, it's really kind of been a 3-man competition, right? Can Shedeur do anything in the next 2 days to truly make this like a 4-man, like he's got a real chance?
Yes, I think so. I do think so. And I think that is why Kevin Stefanski has kept the door open for anybody to win this job. They wanted to see what was going to happen when the chips were down. They wanted to see what was going to happen in these joint practices and see if someone could step up and seize the moment. And if they see some things that they like, if they see just graduate level accuracy from him and some other things, who knows what they might decide to do in the beginning of the season. I don't think it would be a good idea to throw him in there in the beginning of the season. I don't think he's had enough reps, but sometimes things take on a life of their own. We know they're trying to block out the noise and not let Shedeur mania take over for them. But once again, sometimes things get some momentum going and it's hard to dial that back. So I don't know where this is going to go yet. It will depend in large part on how he looks in the games. But you heard even Dion telling Michael Irvin that that he knows what it's going to look like when Shedeur gets in the game. And we've heard Shedeur basically say, you know what it's going to look like when I get into a game. And you know, I know who I am in those kinds of situations. So it's going to be really interesting. And again, he's got better players to throw to. He's got a better offensive line blocking for him. And those are all going to be factors in this.
Yeah. And that's like, Ashley, I think this is one of those scenarios. Look, it could go really poorly, right? That's on the table. He could look bad. He could turn the ball over. He could take sacks. Like, it could go really poorly, or it could go really well. And maybe even if it's not week 1, but a month from now, if the Browns are deciding to look at not a month, 2 months from now, if the Browns are deciding to look at one of these rookies and Shedeur has closed the gap enough on Dillon Gabriel that maybe he's even past him, this feels like that could be the week where it all started. Again, maybe it's not. Maybe this ends up being much ado about nothing, and he looks like he's not ready, and whatever. It was just a crazy week for Shedeur Sanders news. But this is just one of those weeks you put a little pin in it and you're like, okay, we might be talking about this week for a long time here.
Yeah, I really think you just can never say never with these things. I think, as Mary Kay said, that's why the Browns have left this open, like in the event, I don't know, like they obviously couldn't have predicted this exact scenario. I think, Mary Kay, were you the one who asked Kevin yesterday, did you have this on your bingo card, that the veteran Joe Flacco at 40 years old would be the only one not banged up? And Kevin said no, right? There are things all the time happening in this league that you can't account for. And I think while the initial reaction, maybe wider spread reaction, being like, is this guy really going to be ready for this? I do think it's kind of what we said earlier. There's also the possibility that, hey, maybe you throw him out there and I don't know, maybe some bad habits are there, but maybe he looks further along than the Browns expected. So had they come out last week and said, there's no way Shedeur is starting games for us, we picked him up to develop him and there's a developmental plan and blah, blah, that's all fine and great until Kenny Pickett and Dillon Gabriel have sore hamstrings or strained hamstrings in the case of Kenny that they're working their way back from. And you just don't know. So I mean, that's why they play the games, right? This is why they play the games, that classic phrase.
All right. Well, there we go. Shedeur Sanders starting on Friday against the Panthers. So Mary Kay is in Carolina. We're going to talk to her again tomorrow after that joint practice. So she'll tell us all about everything she saw from Shedeur Sanders. It should be very interesting. What we're going to do here is we're going to take a break. And then we are going to be joined by our good buddy, Mike Kaye from the Charlotte Observer. He's going to tell us all about the Carolina Panthers and a little bit about what you can expect a little bit in this practice, mostly in the game. I actually had intended to run this a little later, but then we ended up recording a podcast today. So we're going to run Mike today to get you ready for everything you need to know about the Panthers. That's coming up after the break. Welcome back to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. And now we're going to welcome on an old friend, someone that has been on this pod before, I believe, a long time ago when he was still part of the Advance family with our cleveland.com sister sites, Mike Kaye from the Charlotte Observer. Mike, how are you?
I'm well. It's good to see you guys.
Yeah, it's great to talk to you, previewing the Panthers joint practice. Well, actually, we're previewing the preseason game. The joint practice, when people have heard this, will have already happened. But Mary Kay, why don't you start us off? We're recording this, just full disclosure, on Tuesday. You just posted that Shedeur Sanders is expected to start this preseason game. So lead us off here with Mike.
Yeah, really, barring anything, barring something unforeseen, Shedeur is going to start this game. So I fully 100% expect him to start this football game, which, of course, all the Sanders fans in the nation right now are going crazy over this. But what I really would like to know from you, Mike, is what is he going to face? What is he going to see? He has only taken 4 snaps against the Browns' first team defense. That's it. And he hasn't taken one yet with their first team offense. So what can he expect? Who is he going to be facing on Friday night?
Well, the Panthers plan to play most of their starters, something that they didn't do last year in the preseason until the final preseason game. So they're taking a more, old school approach to the preseason. While Derek Brown's dealing with like a hip and a rib injury right now, he seems to be the only guy that's almost guaranteed not to play. J.C. Horn, I would think that they might try to manage his reps throughout the preseason, so he's kind of questionable. But otherwise, you're getting a fully revamped Panthers defense that has a lot of new faces. Trayvon Merrick was their big free agency signing. He's playing safety. He's kind of moving around the secondary. They drafted Lathan Ransom in the 4th round, and he is kind of in a competition at safety opposite Merrick with Damani Richardson, a second-year undrafted free agent. Who is he's a kind of a ball hawk. I would, to Sean Gibson, it would maybe be a familiar comp for Browns fans. And then they've got kind of a reworked linebacker, second level. Nick scored in the 2nd round pick, dealing with a hamstring injury, so he might not play, but Princely Uman-Milan, their 3rd round pick, he's been really impressing. He wins off the edge with speed. He's going to be an interesting test for their offensive tackles. Their corners right now are Mike Jackson and J.C. Horn. If J.C. Horn doesn't play, you might see undrafted rookie Corey Thornton, who's been turning heads. Shaw Smith-Wade, their nickel corner, has been their best defensive player in training camp, at least on the defensive side, by kind of a country mile. He's really impressive, and he's very, very smart. So if you throw in the middle of the field and you are not, in tune with your wide receivers or tight ends, Shaw Smith-Wade's going to make you pay. He's been just racking up interceptions and pass breakups all summer. And their defensive front's reworked after being the worst run defense and scoring defense in the league last year. Bobby Brown, Sean Wharton comes over from the Chiefs, and they've got Ashawn Robinson and a couple other veterans in there who can kind of clog holes and kind of put pressure up the middle on Shedeur and the rest of the quarterbacks in that room.
Okay, so obviously, Mike, a lot of people have questions about Bryce Young, the quarterback, including Ashley Bastock. Ashley, why don't you take us down that road here?
Yeah, Mike, I was going to say people in Cleveland are, of course, used to quarterback drama of some capacity happening here, but I'm just curious kind of what it's been like in Carolina since Bryce Young obviously gets benched last year, and then they start starting him again, and where things kind of stand with that room with him and Andy Dalton going into this first preseason game.
Well, I think it started off similar to Baker Mayfield, where he kind of got thrust into action very early on, probably wasn't ready to start right away, showed some flashes, immediately kind of paid the price, though, because his first year, Frank Reich was fired almost just in the middle of the season after a game in Tennessee. He had the special teams coordinator as his interim coach to close that one out. Comes back, Dave Canales, first-year head coach, first-year play caller, really true play caller with his head coach responsibilities. And Bryce seemed overwhelmed. I think his confidence was kind of shot just from the previous rookie season, being the first overall pick, seeing what CJ Stroud did, all that type of stuff. And he needed to take a step back and kind of learn. And I think watching Andy Dalton play for 4 weeks helped him realize he could trust some of his weapons, trust the offensive line, which was rebuilt last year, And then he came back in a game against Denver and was kind of whatever. But I think then he started to settle in, and that final stretch of 7 games, he showed so much promise. Now they're looking for proof. And I think the way he shows that proof is by, replicating that promise throughout an entire season. He's had a fine training camp. I mean, he's throwing a lot of interceptions, but I think that's what training camp's for. You want to test yourself with these new weapons. He's got Tedero McMillan now. Xavier Legette, their first-round pick last year, is fully healthy, and I think he's connecting a lot with Shedeur Sanders, their 4th-round pick from last year. Their 2024 draft class is ascending, and that's what good organizations do. They have a promising rookie class, then they step up in their second year, and I think that's going to help Bryce ascend.
You mentioned Dave Canales, obviously, when you have a young quarterback and then you hire an offensive-minded head coach. I know that took some people maybe by surprise when they brought him in last year, but what have you sort of learned about him covering him for 2 years?
Well, he's consistent. I mean, I think, it was a torrential downpour on Tuesday, and he came in, and I said, Dave, if you say it was a nice day out, I swear, I don't know how to react to that. And he goes, well, it was. He's the same guy every day, and I think, players, especially now in the NIL, post-COVID, all that stuff, they all appreciate consistency, and he is a guy who's consistently positive. I think he wants to build a program. A player, I forgot who, said earlier this summer, they went from feeling like a team to feeling like a program. And I think this generation of NFL players, especially players like 27 and older, they're so used to being professional young college players because of NIL and because of COVID and extending their careers, that they want to feel like they are part of a program as opposed to just a team. And I think that's where he's kind of hitting. He's very good with his emotional intelligence. Even with the benching of Bryce Young, he was very sensitive to Young without kind of making it about Young. And he made it about the team. And I think guys really bought into that. He also trusts his older veterans. This team, despite being a rebuilding team, is not a particularly young one. Like, they're averaging between 26 and 27 years old. So I think that's what's kind of interesting. He's leaning on those vets, the A'Shawn Robinsons, J.C. Horns, Derek Browns, even the long snapper, J.J. Jansen. They all have kind of a say in that kind of leadership room.
How has Bryce grown, do you think? Because facing that adversity, I mean, what does that do for a guy? And how much faith in there is in the fan base is there in Bryce Young? Well,
like I said, I think that 7 games kind of give you like proof of product, right? Like, and now you've got to hit that assembly line. You've got to roll with it. You got to start selling. And I think that everybody's kind of cautiously optimistic. He's the guy for right now. He can become the guy for the future too. And I think, this is a team that has not made the playoffs in 7 years. They need this fan base just wants an average quarterback. I mean, like, really, like, if he can be a top 15 quarterback, I think they feel good about where he's at, because those are still a hard commodity, right? Like, half the league doesn't have that. And I mean, you look at what Cleveland's going through right now. They're searching for that top 15, top 12 guy. If Bryce can kind of show what he did last year in those final 7 games, he's going to be in that category. And I think where his growth has really come in is he's become a more vocal leader. He's not intimidated by pre-snap. That was like a big thing. It took forever to get out of the huddle last year. He's not overthinking stuff. He trusts his quarterback. I mean, he trusts his quarterback's coach. He trusts his offensive coordinator. He trusts his head coach, who is calling plays. And I think trusting his offensive line, too, is huge in all of his development.
Hey, Mike, I have 2 questions for you. One is a follow-up on Shedeur, and the other one is sort of a weather question. I'm down here in Charlotte right now, going to the joint practice tomorrow, and I know it's a rainy week. So what happens in the event of rain tomorrow? That's my first question. Is there somewhere to go inside, or what's going to happen?
No, there is not. I sat on Tuesday in 2 hours worth of soggy clothes. It was not fun. They're going to have to practice. Now, 2 years ago, when they used to host training camp in Spartanburg, South Carolina, they had 2 joint practices scheduled with the Jets. The first one they went through. Then it rained like it did today, and they canceled it. It sounds like they're going to practice no matter what. Canales said that he talked to Stefanski, and they're very much aware of the weather. It's going to be more tough for us than anybody, but I will tell you today, it was like watching guys try to catch balls off a slip and slide, or like when you were younger and you would throw balls at your friends when they were jumping into the pool. Like it was a rough scene. And I think, there were wide receivers not wearing gloves. There were DBs wearing gloves. It was a lot. And, I don't know how much you can get a read on that. I don't know if everybody's going to practice tomorrow, just because if you're practicing in pads, and I don't know why you would have Myles Garrett risk injury or, JC Horn risk injury over a sloppy field. But they keep saying that the field's been really well taken care of. It's a grass field. They're taking care of it. But yeah, I wish I could give you more, but there is no answer. There is no indoor. They're building a field house, but that won't be accessible until 2027, which will be, I'm sure, a wonderful year because I won't have to rush home and change. Yeah, there's no option. If they want to get these joint practices in, they're going to get them in, but they're going to be pretty wet in doing.
So we're saying that I might not be able to do video after practice right away, at least unless I go home and blow dry my hair, is basically what we're talking about tomorrow, right?
Yes. Yeah. Same Z's. I don't think I'm going to be, in the best shape either. But yeah, I hope you brought your umbrella. I hope you brought your jacket. Cause I don't think it'll be as bad as today, but it's not going to be pretty. And I think, they had an opportunity here to be like, nope, let's not join practice, seeing the weather reports. But, the Panthers were out there in shells today. So
here we go. All right. Well, let me ask a real quick follow-up here on Shedeur Sanders. And one of the things that I'm very curious about is the fact that probably the biggest issue with Shedeur to this point, and one of his biggest issues in college, was that he retreated under pressure. When the heat is on, he has a tendency to drift. So what I'm curious about is, do you think that the Panthers are going to take this opportunity to really get their pressure on and dial up the heat for him and try to come after him a little bit, maybe even do some things a little bit less vanilla than you might otherwise do in a preseason game? And, might there be some players on this team that want to try to make a little bit of a name for themselves by getting to Shedeur Sanders?
I think the pressure is going to come from a spot that isn't typical. I think they're going to blitz him quite a bit. I think Trevin Wallace has shown just a knack for getting into space and disrupting plays. He had a sack today in practice. He had 2 a couple of days ago. Like, he is a heat-seeking missile. He's like an old-school seek and destroy type of linebacker. And I think you're going to see him kind of pull the string on that one a few times. I think Princely Uman-Milan, their third-round pick, is a guy who's going to win with speed. If you have an offensive tackle who's known more for his brute and not his athleticism, good luck, because this kid can bend. He's like Gumby-like. He's basically like Josh Sweat, but like 5 years younger. And I think he's got special speed and special bend. They do have 2 veterans there. Patrick Jones, who they brought in, who's going to move around. They like him a lot. He's from the Vikings. And then DJ Wanham in his second year, he's kind of just a speed rusher off the edge. We haven't really gotten, there've been 3 padded practices, so we haven't really gotten to see kind of like the push up the middle. But a guy that I would kind of focus on is Turk Wharton from Kansas City. He is a situational pass rusher who can win at 3 technique. He can win at 5 technique. He's gonna do some damage in there if you're not careful, especially in the interior.
Mike, the one other question I had kind of along those lines of Mary Kay pointing out, like, anybody willing or trying to make a name for themselves, like, what are some of the prime position battles right now that you have your eye on?
Well, a name you guys will be familiar with, Austin Corbett, is competing at center with Cade Mays. Austin's been injured the last 3 he's had 3 major surgeries in the last 2 years. Has only played 5 games of actual center in a game, or in regular season games. And so he's facing Cade Mays, who closed out last year and did pretty well there. The kicking competition is up there, so I'm interested to see how guys do on kickoffs. Ryan Fitzgerald, an undrafted rookie from FSU, and Matthew Wright, who I call the kicking mantis because he has like a weird, like, kind of, disposition. He's an interesting guy. I'm actually breaking that on this podcast, I think. He's kind of a nomad kicker. There. And then at wide receiver, Hunter Renfrow is probably not going to play, but he's been kind of a sensation in his year back. I don't know if Adam Thielen will play. I don't think he really necessarily needs to, but I think McMillan and Leggett and Jimmy Horn, a 6th-round pick out of Colorado, who Shedeur should be very, very familiar with. I asked him about him the other day. He said they still keep in contact. He is quite the character. This kid is impossible to cover like one-on-one without pads. So during practice, it's going to be very interesting to see how he does. They did FanFest the other day. He ran 2 out routes that were so poorly covered that you would have thought he was being covered by a ghost, and he scored a touchdown on both of them. So I think the wide receiver stuff is really compelling. I'm really interested to see how the Browns linebacker stuff shakes out, because they could use some enhanced depth there. They could also use some enhanced cornerback depth. So they're going to be kind of looking for that as the waiver wire and player for player trades become available. And I mean, if the Browns need offensive line help, defensive line help, they have the highest paid offensive and defensive lines in the league, and they're probably 2 over in their talent pool in each spot. So that's kind of compelling. Tight end's also another interesting spot. I mean, this is a team that is kind of rebuilding on the fly, and so I think there's a lot to like, at least from a preseason standpoint.
Okay, we'll let you go with this one. This is probably a pretty random one, but you've mentioned a few of these names, but the second, third, and fourth picks that the Panthers made were 3 of my favorite players. And the one guy we haven't talked about is Trevor Etienne, the 4th-round running back. There were a lot of day 3 running backs that I really liked, and he was one of them. Our buddy Chris Easterling, who you might meet down there in Charlotte, he was a big Etienne fan. What have you seen out of him here in these early days?
So I'll give you kind of a nugget that I reported a little while ago. They were like enamored with him, and they've really gone analytic heavy with Eric Eager, who used to work for Sumer Sports and PFF. And his model basically said, if you don't take Etienne right now in the 4th round with your first pick, you're probably not going to get him. And the second they picked him, 3 picks later, 2 running backs came off the board. So there was like a running back run. Canales was like absolutely enamored with him because of his 3rd down ability. He has made catches like he's a wide receiver. Like, he is going to play a lot. He's going to be a really good returner. I think they're going to use him on 3rd downs initially, but he's a very good change of pace kind of projection. They like him a lot. He is a guy that they are really entrusting to do a lot this year.
Mike, Charlotte Observer. Now, Mary Kay is going to be on your podcast, so where can people find that?
Yeah, so we're on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, Processing Blue. We are a Panthers podcast, and we process that for you. Process Blue is their actual color. Like, that's what it's called, the accent. So let's play on that. But you can also find me on Twitter at Mike_E_KAYE. It's the worst Twitter handle on the face of the earth, but you got to keep it once you've had it for like 15 or 16 years.
I'm always supportive of those of us that are stuck with the underscore. What can you do? You're right. You can't change it now. It's too late. All right. Mike Kaye from the Charlotte Observer joining us here. We appreciate you taking the time, Mike.
Thanks for having me.